All right, buckle up, because understanding Scientology parenting takes a little context and maybe a few deep breaths. Let's dive into the weird, wild world of Scientology's take on kids. Spoiler alert, it's not warm and fuzzy. So, what does Scientology really teach about children? First, the basics. L. Ron Hubbard in Child Dianetics dropped this gem. A child is not a special species of animal distinct from a man or woman. A child is a man or woman who has not attained full growth. Translation? Scientology doesn't see kids as kids. Nope. They're just tiny adults, or as Hubbard would say, ageless spirits in little bodies. And here's the kicker. Then he said, any law which applies to the behavior of men and women applies to children. Sound dangerous? Yeah, that's because it is. So let's examine just why this is so messed up. If kids are just little adults, they lose their childhood. They lose their rights. They lose protections designed specifically for their vulnerability. Now, they're equals, expected to pull their weight like everyone else. Forget bedtime stories and cuddles. Welcome to group member status, where you're a resource for Scientology's needs. Traditional parent-child roles? Poof, gone. Instead, kids become ageless spirits in tiny bodies, and valuable only if they're contributing. Oh, and bodies? Just meat. Scientology doesn't value them much, except maybe to carry more Scientology pamphlets. Let's not forget about Scientology's greatest good doctrine. Everything in Scientology revolves around the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics. Translation: what's good for Scientology is good for the world. So naturally, every life decision, big or small, has to prioritize Scientology. This means your health? Irrelevant. Your dreams? Doesn't matter. Your happiness? Who cares? Unless, of course, your dreams align perfectly with the church. Spoiler, they probably don't. And remember, in Scientology, all bad things that happen to you, they're your fault. Here's another Hubbard special. You pull in all bad things that happen to you. Car accident? Illness? Assault? You brought it on yourself. Why? Because you must have done something bad, maybe even in a past life. Can't find the memory? Don't worry. Scientology will help you invent one. Yep, welcome to False Memories 101. And if you show emotions like pain, fear, or grief, well, you're low-toned and not worth anyone's time. Feeling bad is basically only for losers in Scientology. What about those suppressive persons, or SPs, otherwise known as the Big Bad Boogeyman? Here's a Scientology nightmare. If you criticize Scientology or displease the group, you risk being declared an SP, a suppressive person. That means you're pure evil, beyond redemption, and contagious. Once you're declared an SP, you're completely cut off until you recant. Family, friends, everyone in Scientology is compelled to disconnect or be declared suppressive themselves. To a Scientologist, being declared SP is worse than death. This fear keeps parents, siblings, and friends in line and willing to abandon you in a heartbeat. The biggest gaslighting of all, you're expected to always be able to make it go right. Even kids. This is the golden rule. Anything can be accomplished if you just try hard enough. Failure isn't an option. If you don't succeed, you're not trying. If you're suffering, it's your fault. And let's not forget, complaining or being critical just means you have crimes, and reporting outside of Scientology is a crime. This creates a perfect storm for kids. They can't express their feelings safely. They blame themselves for everything. They're trained to mute their voices entirely. They have zero advocacy. And what about the dark side of ethics? Scientology's ethics policies and punishments are its way of keeping everyone in line. What does that mean for kids? Victim blaming, shaming, punishment, and threats. Anything unacceptable gets handled by ethics, which basically means the child is blamed for whatever happened to them. And if a crime, like abuse, occurs, reporting to outside authorities is forbidden. Only Scientology can fix things, which just ensures that perpetrators face no real consequences. So what's the fallout of growing up like this? Growing up in Scientology can leave you with a unique set of survival skills and scars. Here's what life as a Scientology kid can teach you. Hyper-independence, because no one else has your back. Inauthenticity, because being real isn't safe. Perfectionism, because failure is not an option. Lack of education, because real-world laws, rights, life, and knowledge aren't taught. Age-inappropriate lessons and relationships, because kids are fair game romantically. You learn that your value is tied to your productivity, your ability to further Scientology's goals. Nothing more, nothing less. And for an additional layer of exploitation, add the billion-year Sea Org trap. For kids, the endgame is often the Sea Org, Scientology's paramilitary group. Recruitment starts young with promises of adventure, travel, and education. You're often pretty miserable at home, so prime picking for recruiters who stalk you, love bomb you, flatter and flirt with you, make you feel seen and heard, and even important, at least long enough to get you to sign on the dotted line. Spoiler, you get none of the things you're promised. Instead, you'll work endlessly, sleep rarely, eat minimally, have no life outside, and if you struggle, it's your fault. You'll be punished with more ethics. Failing in the Sea Org is pretty much guaranteed, unless you're an android. And wanting to leave for any reason simply means you have crimes. Sensing a pattern here? Either way, it's pretty hard to escape, thanks to the snitching culture, 24/7 1984 style monitoring, constant roll calls, and even drills designed to track down escapees. Scientology has labor trafficking pretty much perfected, even billing its staff for all your training if you dare to leave. And until you settle your debt with them, you'll be considered a freeloader, not in good standing, so persona non grata. In the real world, that's called debt bondage. Who knew? And what's the cost if you leave Scientology entirely? Well, leaving Scientology as a child means losing everything: family, friends, and any sense of security, a place to live, food, clothing. You're starting over from scratch, without even the language to describe what you've been through. It means heading off into the dangerous WOG world on your own. Scary stuff. And what about healing? It's a long, hard road. Some of us make it out, some don't. But if you're reading this, you're already one of the lucky ones. So if you're navigating life after this childhood, take it slow and one step at a time. You'll need to relearn, even learn what it means to be human. Give yourself permission to feel, to fail, to just be. And no matter what, remember, it wasn't your fault. You were a kid, and you deserved better. Check back here for more survivor tips and tricks, and please share any you have in the comments. We need everyone we can get.